First of all, with regard to questions concerning Yichud, so we do have this book in English called Laws of Purity from Rav Vakshal, and there you'll find in detail all types of decisions concerning the laws of Yichud. But I prefer to go on with you directly the words of this Mishnah, last Mishnah of Kiddushin. So the Mishnah begins with, someone wants to say it, just the first din of the Mishnah. Kol she'asku im asakov. Asakov im anashim lo yisyachet im hanashim. For this, it's good if you want to use an art scroll Mishnah.
There's another one. Let me give you another one for that.
I brought you tomorrow. Carry on.
No, I'm saying it's another one.
Carry on, please.
V'lo yilmad odom es benoi umnus hanoshim. Rabbi Meir omer le'olam yilmad odom es benoi umnus nekia.
Please, full stop. So please translate this.
Everybody that is engaged in with women mustn't be secluded with women.
Mustn't be what?
Mustn't have yichud with women.
Should seclude himself with women.
Should not seclude himself with women. Yeah. A person should not teach his son a trade with women.
So we see the direct connection. In other words, a person, as we know, is permitted to be by himself a man with two women, who are kosher women. Just means permitted to be together with three women, not with two. Two is not allowed to be. No person, no man should be together with two women, because one protects the other. But he may be together with three or more women. But if his business is a business for women, yes, like perfume and women's clothes and so on, then he shouldn't be together with them at all. Because according to the first opinion, which Tanakama should not be together alone. If his wife is with him, there's no problem, and otherwise he shouldn't. And therefore, a person should also not teach his son the profession, the trade, which will bring him into contact with women. And then the Rabbi Meir says, so what should a person do? He should always teach his son and umnot, the key of a color. And they say, some of the comments say, what's the connection? And the key means it should be a type of trade where you won't come to have lewd thoughts. It means it should be a trade where he's not too much together with women. It's the same principle. And even though it might mean it's a bit more limited, doesn't matter, Hashem will help him. That's the interrelationship. According to which, some say, that Rabbi Meir disagrees with the first opinion. Because he comes to tell us that he's got to make sure it's the key of a color. Some say this question is, does he agree with the first opinion, or is he being more strict? But it's clear there's a relationship between these two aspects. Now, and then now we begin with the whole discussion in the Mishnah, the long Mishnah, which deals with what should a person teach his son when it comes to teaching him a trade, and teaching him how to have parnassah. So the question is, this ending of the tractate Kiddushin, which the rest of it has nothing directly to do with marriage. It's more got to do with to which extent should a person rely upon Hashem, to which extent should a person work for his living. So can you tell me what's the connection of this with the major subject, Kiddushin, which is marriage? I think you should be able to give me a simple answer to this question.
Woman.
Huh?
Woman.
What do you mean?
Well, Kiddushin is with women, and
what?
This is being secluded with women.
Pardon?
This is being secluded with women.
That's the first part. That's the interrelation of the first phrase of this Mishnah. But then the Mishnah goes on to say, tell us that we should know a livelihood is not dependent upon the profession, it's dependent upon the Creator. Yes? Or everything is according to his zechut, everything is according to his merit.
Same with Shidduchim then.
Huh?
Same with Shidduchim.
That's what?
Also depends on merit.
Yeah. Okay, that's one answer. Another answer you can give me? Well, no, when you want, I'll put it, it's connected directly with the first beginning of Masechet Kiddushin. You know, one likes to make a hadron when you conclude a Masechet, you try to connect the beginning with the end of that tractate. What's the connection between the beginning of the tractate Kiddushin and this? We're coming to the last subject, which is then discussed in detail also in the Gemara.
Which is speaking of Parnasah, right?
Yes.
So you need to give something valuable to the woman in order to be Kiddushin.
Yes.
So how are you gonna get that valuable? By Parnasah, I would say.
Well, what does the first mission of Kiddushin say? Can you remember it?
Yeah, 3 ways a woman is acquired, and star, and Knesset, and
then what's the first line of the Gemara?
Isha Niknas.
Isha
The Kesef.
Kesef.
Ask Kesef Minolan. Where do you get the money from? Kesef Minolan is what's the source for Kiddushin through something of value. But the phrase at the beginning of Kiddushin is Kesef Minolan. When you come to the Parsha of Kiddushin, that means you want to get married and you want to get engaged. What's the first question that you should ask yourself these days?
Money.
Kesef Minolan. Where will you get money from to make the
yeah, that's the question I have.
That's right. Therefore I say, that's why I thought you'd all of you be able to give the answer right away. So the end of the Masechet has a lot to do with the beginning. At the beginning, Kesef Minolan means what's the source in the Chumash. A person can change the status from being single to being married with money, with silver. But of course there it speaks about the act of as a way change of status. But symbolically it means that's one of the first questions, which the majority of students in the yeshiva have that question. They're not married yet, they want to get married, then the first question is, where will we get the money from? Yeah, not always simple. Because to get married, you've got to have an income. So where will it come from? That's the question.
Hashem.
Huh?
It says here, Parnasah, it depends from Hashem.
Okay, well, can you rely on it? Yeah. If you can rely on it, well, it comes entirely from Hashem. Why do you have to teach your sons an umnot? Is it important for parents to teach their sons a profession and what type of profession it goes into? But if it all comes from Hashem, Hashem will provide it, won't He? Or do we have to make you stadlot? Well, that's we discussed further in the mission of the Gemara.
And at the end it says you teach him Torah, so...
Yeah. But now I want to speak about we have to go a little bit further in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Reb Meir says, he should teach his son, Umas and the Kiyavakala, and carry on. David, can you continue in the Mishnah? V'yit Palel.
Hey, bet, עכשיו?
V'yit
Palel, you should pray.
Find the place.
Lemi.
Third line in the Mishnah.
I have to find the place, sorry.
to the one who owns Osher and
שהעושר והנכסים שלו,
wealth and all possessions belong to him.
שאין אומנות, שאין בה עניות והשירות שלו.
No. שאין מות, שאין בה עניות ועשירות.
שלא עניות.
It's good if you've got your own Gemara to make commas, to make some grammatical remarks, and you'll be able to understand what it's about. There's no such thing as any profession which doesn't have people who are poor and people who are rich. As we know, there are poor doctors and rich doctors, and there are poor lawyers and rich ones, and there are poor shopkeepers and rich ones. So you see, it's not a question entirely of effort, and not even a question of having talents. Because it says, Shelo aniyot min umnut. It's not the profession that produces poverty. Carry on. Velo ashiru min umnut. And wealth also. Wealth does not come necessarily from the type of profession you choose. Ella?
הכל לפי זהותו.
Everything is according to his merit. Just a minute, stop. Let's stop here. What does it mean, his merit? What's that mean? What's the meaning of the word zakut?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. Is it determined before you're born? Is it determined at Rosh Hashanah? Is it adjusted according with the person's behavior? It's a few different questions.
Well, let's see what Rashi says first. Good question, very good analysis. Rashi in the Key of the Kala, the Gemara will explain what this means. We'll see later. Val Yomar Belibo should not say in his mind, Natzu Ein Mashet. I don't want to choose the profession to be a shopkeeper, or let's say to be a doctor, because doesn't this make you rich? And no, there are certain places where doctors are in demand and they make a very good salary, and others where they don't. The same applies to a shop. He should ask for compassion from the one who owns all wealth. But what does it say here? But everything depends upon the zechut. So generally speaking, zechut means a merit. So therefore you should ask Hashem, look, I've got certain merits. Yeah? I've got merits of the forefathers, and I've got my own merits. I try to fulfill your will. So please Hashem, help me. And when you ask Hashem, He answers, generally speaking. Now, Tosfos says something very unusual here.
But he answers, but sometimes not in the way that we want.
That's right.
You said he answers.
He answers what's really good for us, which might mean poverty.
Yeah.
Something is good for us. It trains us. If you become wealthy, you might become corrupt. Yeah. But Tosfos says, and this has to do with your analysis. Who wants to say the Tosfos?
הכל לפי זהותו, פירוש לפי מזלו.
So Tosfos says according to his mazel. What's mazel?
Mazel was determined before a person's born, 30 or 40 days.
Mazal means a star, actually. The translation of Mazal is star.
So what does that mean? Astrology?
Destiny.
His horoscope?
The Jewish people.
Actually, I read in the Masechet Megillah, it's written very interestingly that Mazal is actually what you create doing mitzvahs, you're creating angel protectors, and doing Averos is doing just the opposite. And this is called actually what is your Mazal like, because this is what is above you in sky, which you created yourself actually, right?
Well, let's analyze this more carefully, because it's a very basic question which is important for us to understand. Tosfos equates zechut with mazal. Because Tosfos says why? Because here we're talking about livelihood, and with the qualification, it does not depend upon what work you do. Don't think that your choice of profession and trade will automatically decide that you're going to have enough food enough money to sort things out for your family or to get married. So there's a statement in the Gemara you'll find more in Megillah, you find the statement where it says, Boni v'chai u'mezoini la b'zchut etali milsa v'matal etali milsa. There, the Gemara says explicitly what children you have and how long you live, chaya, and how much parnasah you have, how much life you have, do not depend upon zechut, upon merits, but they depend upon the mazal. So Tosh distinguishes between zechut and mazal, because otherwise you've got a contradiction in the two statements. It mentions explicitly mezoini. What's mezoini? Livelihood. How can the Mishnah say livelihood depends upon zechut when we have another Gemara which says no, it depends upon mazal? So we see that when it says here in the Mishnah zechut, they really mean mazal. So Tosfos assumes mazal is something which is decreed from above. Zechut is something which depends upon the merit of the person. That seems to be the opinion of Tosfos. So either Tosfos go into the astrological view that's already decided. Mazal generally means already decided by the stars or the horoscope. And there's plenty of Gemara to prove it. For example, the Gemara says that if somebody is born under the horoscope of Mars, and Mars is the red planet, which represents, and in all civilizations represented power, military power. The martial arts comes from the concept of Mars. So this person can be born in such a mazal. So he'll either become a murderer, a kidnapper, or he can also become a doctor, a surgeon, or a mohel, or a shochet. But he'll be bloodthirsty. Otherwise he will be able to have so much aggression, either to become a person who kills other people and finds a certain fulfillment in it, killing others. And who had that? Who had that quality?
King David.
Esau is even given the name Edom. Edom is the redness. And also, when he gave over his birthright to Yaakov, it was on the basis of him. He says, please pour down my throat, ha'adom hazeh. This looks like blood and I want to swallow it. The reddened lentil soup. Look, because it was only half cooked. When it's half cooked, it goes red, and afterwards it goes yellow. So he said, I want it straight away. Otherwise, he was a person so aggressive. Who else was given the same redness? Who else?
David
HaMelech. David HaMelech used it for the good. Yes, he was very strong. With that power, he was able to kill Goliath. So therefore, it can be used for good. And but the mazal therefore means the basic tendencies. But the Gemara also says in Nida that before a person is born, it's already decided whether it's become weak or strong, or whether it become rich or poor. So we see wealth is predetermined. Hashem determines it. So the question is, how do we equate zechut with mazal? They're two different things. So Torah said the word zechut here does not mean the way it's usually used. Zechut here is the way, not his merit, what he deserves. But here it means what's predetermined. So now I'd like to go to this question more thoroughly, which I'd like you, got any for him here? Any more?
I don't have some.
Tosfos Yom Tov. Here says the Mishnah with Tosfos Yom. So those who follow in the Hebrew, I'll say the Tosfos Yom, he raises these questions. Let me explain who are the major commentaries on the Mishnah. We have the most commonly used classical commentaries, the Patanura. We go back to Rashi and to Rambam. The Rambam is one of the earliest commentators. The one who elaborated Mishnah more, called Tes Yom Tov Melech Hela, he was also a relative of the Maral, brings the Maral a lot in his commentaries, and he goes into basic questions that often come up in the Mishnah. And here, the point raised by the Mishnah is a very basic one. What does it mean? If everything depends upon Hashem, the Mazal, why should a person bother to work at all? Everything depends upon Hashem. Now can we say that Mazal is the same as a Chut? It's very different what Tosfos says.
Who's the Tosfos Yom Tov?
Huh?
Is Tosfos Yom Tov one of the Tosavists? He's one of the...
Tosfos Yom Tov?
Yeah, who is that?
No, it's much later than the two. The Tosfos spoke about yesterday in the additions to Rashi, the Rishonim. Tosfos Yom Tov was the Rav of Krakow after the time of Beis Yosef. He's an early Acharon, called them Achronim. So if you turn to the last Mishnah in the Mishnahs, you see here, Tosfos Yom Tov. You've got, can you share? No, it won't be in that one.
It is not, this doesn't have either.
It's in this one?
This is also.
This is fine. It's not in there, no. No, it's in the...
I couldn't find some.
Okay, so perhaps I'll translate it directly then. That's it. But those who can follow Hebrew easily, they share it with them.
No, this is Otsko. This is not a Mishnah.
I brought another one.
You brought that Otsko one?
I put it there.
Yeah, guys, he's not using it, grab it.
No, but I thought in yours.
It's one in Hebrew, not Otsko.
No, not Otsko.
Have you got the Mishnah, Hebrew Mishnahs? No.
Which Mishnah?
Oh, it's here, I'm sorry. The last Mishnah of Kiddushin. It's here, put it there.
Adaran?
Yod Dalet,
Alek?
Rabbi Yehuda Meir, Lo Yireh, Ravak, Ema, Lo Yishum.
Well, I want you all to read the Mishnah in English, which you've already done, the first part of it in any case.
Which parak?
The last chapter, chapter 4, the last Mishnah. The last Mishnah of Kiddushin. So, yeah. Can you share it? Somebody can read Hebrew. There was no point. I'll just say it in... What's it say here? Hakol lefi zechuto. So he says, if everything depends upon merit, im hakol lefi zechuto, so why should you, it says you've got to daven for it. Why do you have to daven for it? It depends if you fulfill the mitzvahs or don't. That's what Hashem thinks is zechut, you deserve it, He'll give it to you. If you don't deserve it, He won't. Shim zechuto kadai, because if his merit is enough, surely Hashem will give him his reward. And if his merit is not enough, then we say he won't get. He'll have to be poor. Poverty and wealth are dependent upon a person's sinfulness or saintliness in the eyes of Hashem. So how do you answer it?
Did you just say what?
So the Tosfos, he answers this as follows. It's like Tosfos says in a number of places. It says in the Gemara, Ein Mazel Yisrael. Yeah? There's no such thing as, some would say, a Yid never has luck, Ein Mazel Yisrael. We don't have luck. We look today, whatever Jews try doesn't help. We don't have any, we can't expect much fortune, especially looking at what's happening today, nearly all over the world. Whatever good things we do, they forget about them. Whatever little mistakes we made, they exaggerate them, use them to accuse us. Jews don't have mazel. And often we even ask, why do the world treat us so differently? That's not really what it means. When you say in Mazel Yisrael, it means the nations of the world are described in the Tanakh as being being influenced by the stars. But the people of Israel are not dependent on the stars. Many of the nations believe the stars decide their fate. And even those who don't use the word the stars, they say it's all predetermined what's going to happen to us. The people of Israel were not under the predetermined decision of what goes on in the heavens and influences the earth, but we follow Zechut. Yeah? But on the other hand, Tosfos asks the kasha here as well. On the one hand it says Ein Mazel Yisrael, on the other hand it says children, what children you have, and if you do or don't, what happens to the children? What happens to a person's length of life? Also means health in life. And what happens to a person's livelihood? Do not depend upon zchut, but depend upon mazel. So here we have a direct contradiction. On the one hand we say Ein Mazel Yisrael. On the other hand we say mazel. And it applies even on a different level, this question, a more modern level. Even though it's like this, we find, even until today, there'll be some Jewish commentators who say that there's such a thing as astrological influence. But the vast majority of modern educated people is to reject astrology entirely. Yeah? May a Jew be an astrologist? It's a question. Yeah? Some say no, it's not allowed to be. The Rambam says, doesn't put an Isser on it, you're not allowed to be, but he says it's all ignorance. The Rambam was opposed to astrology in the extreme. A letter from him. He did believe that in life Hashem decides many things, which Hashem decides. Also something the human beings decide. We give them freedom, but Hashem ultimately controls the world. So, from the expression of the Gemara, it would appear the nation of the world might be under astrological influence, or they believe in it, but we Jews don't necessarily believe in it. So Tosfos gives the answer like this. He says, both powers exist. There is a mazal, there is a predetermined aspect to what happens to a human being in nearly all areas of life, but his merit can change it. The zchut, the big zchut changes, let's say a person's predetermined term of life is till 90, but if he has a great zchut, Hashem will give him the ability to live till 100, through great zchut, till he lives till 100. If you want to put it in more modern terms, a person, if the doctor will say, that many doctors say, a doctor will say this person can't live more than a few days, but if this person has a great zechut, Hashem will help him live more days. That's what we find that, let's say, with regard to Zecher Tzadik Livroch, Rav Elyashiv, about 12 years ago, or something like that, he was in a very serious terminal stage in his life, and that most of the surgeons gave up. But all his prayers were said everywhere, and the surgeon who was in charge of trying to save his life said it was a miracle. What I mean, and he felt like his hand, when he did the surgery, was redirected from above. I spoke to myself, I met him in America, on top surgeon. And he said it's surely the merit of his enormous dedication to teaching Torah and the prayers of hundreds and thousands of people that he should survive. He survived another 12 years or so, during which I personally had the benefit to attend many of his shiurim. So a zchut can change the mazel. Well, in modern terms, you don't call it mazel, you don't call it astrology, but you call it the basic constitution of this person's body, according to all the normal procedures of medical possibilities, had no hope. But things happen. You see, things can happen. Things can change. You have a zchut. That's why that's can change. As the Gemara brings the Gemara from Tanis, by Blozer and Pados, he said, also this connection. Hashem said to him, when he said, in order for you to live, I'll have to create a new world, I'll destroy the world. Anyway, so this Yom Tov wants to answer it like this. For such a matter, the prayer helps. The question is, well, how can prayer help? If it all depends either predetermined or a merit, what do you need prayer for? So he says, yeah, prayer can help. Because the merit is not, or sometimes not enough by itself to change the predetermined situation of this person. Therefore, every chassid has to pray that the zchus should change the mazal. Or put it in modern terms, that the great saintliness of this person should give him a high level. Each person prays for himself. Should always pray for himself amongst others, and pray for others first if possible. But he prays for himself. You also say, look, please Hashem, remember I did this and I did that, remember all the good things. And Hashem will sometimes say, well, I also remember if you're going to carry on doing these good things, then I listen to your prayer. But if you don't make the effort of prayer, it's difficult to change the mazal. And now let's go further to what Guy quite rightly pointed out. When you come, we know there are many things that are decided in Rosh Hashanah. Yeah? So they have the same situation. If we say everything depends, everything is predetermined, and Rosh Hashanah Hashem makes already a decision, then after Rosh Hashanah, if according to most commentators, the nature of a person's life from one year to the next is decided by Hashem. It's decided by Yom Kippur. If it's written in the book of the living, you live. If not, the other way. So that means after Yom Kippur, or some say after Rosh Hashanah Rabbah, when you give him the last chance, there's no real point in praying. Everything already decided. So therefore the answer is no. The decision has been made from Rosh Hashanah is really, it's got a lot to do with the concept of the cycle of the year. You go back to the initial point where you were before, and now of course see your new cycle. Hashem gives you a new chance to live. How are you going to use it? So if the decision has been made on the basis of your record from the past year, you don't deserve to live anymore, or you deserve to become ill, or you deserve to become poor, so how can you change it? The answer is, even after Shana Rabbah. But everything be decided, if the tefillah is strong enough, and you can even say, tefillah and zechut go together. And perhaps here we'll make use of the very deep interpretation which is developed by Rav Hirsch. Rav Hirsch, the Malbim also goes in a similar direction. To understand anything of the deeper concepts of the Torah's outlook upon life, it's good to go to the language of the Tanakh. So how would you say in Hebrew to pray? Huh? What's the root of Hitpalel?
Shorsh.
What's the shorish? What form is it? You know, there's different binyanim.
Peel.
No, Hitpalel is not peel. What is it? Pardon?
It's a reflexive.
Reflexive. Reflexive means Hitpalel. Hitpalel is to work in oneself. So what's the root of Palal? What's Palal mean? Vayvenu Pelilim?
Action.
No, Palal, Pe Lamed Lamed is the root which is to judge. So therefore, Hitpalel is self-judgment. Yeah. That's basically so that's how it explains also. If I'm not going to know too much, it also explains on that basis the name Tefillin. Yeah. Because Tefillin is not mentioned in the Chumash, the word Tefillin. But Tefillin is really a concentration of self-judgment. It's the Tefillin themselves that create the power of judgment. It means you have to judge your mind, your actions, in the light of what's in the boxes of the Tefillin. And Hitpalel is the same thing. It's the main aspect of prayer is self-judgment. In other words, we know there are other words for to pray. Zachin is supplication, but Hitpalel is to take the words of the Siddur. That explains also why we have a fixed Siddur. The Siddur is made up, it's not just self-expression. Self-expression of a person's desire to be close to Hashem, and a person's prayer that Hashem should help him, where there are many words. In the Tanakh, there are 10 words describe different aspects of prayer. Whether it's the praise of Hashem, or whether it's a supplication to Hashem, it's all interrelated with self-judgment. Hashem listens to you. Hashem is the highest level of perfection, moral perfection. So therefore you have to judge yourself, how far do I live up to walking in the ways of Hashem, becoming like unto Him? How far am I living the Tselem Elokim? Do you have, like we in English, what's godliness? What's godliness? Godliness is to feel the power of God in my life. That's godliness. It's not so much just being aware that Hashem exists. It's even more so that Hashem should enter into my life. And Hashem's will, the Derech Hashem, Valachta Bidrachav, to walk in the midst of Hashem, has got to enter my life. So therefore, the Tefillah and the Zchut go together.
I just wanted to say, it's like what you're saying, it's an introspective thing.
Yeah.
Your wealth is self-determined, but it's really like what you do with it, because you don't know when you'll get it, or from where it comes from.
Yeah.
So basically, when you're praying, it's like you're thinking to yourself, it's will I get to keep my wealth because of what like my responsibilities are to do with it. It's sort of like the story with I think Rabbi Ben Zakkai when he sees the woman on the side of the road looking through the dung for food, and he remembers her from being like her father was a big Baal Chesed, and she said, but my father didn't give enough, and then they lost their wealth. Is it sort of like this idea?
Yeah. So anyway, I'll continue here with the description of how to reconcile the concept of zechut with the concept you've got to pray for it. He says that what will his prayer help if the muzzle's already decided and nature goes on? So the nature of his situation continues. So what did it help? A person follows any profession, what's it going to help him? It won't harm him, won't help him. Everything is according to what's predetermined. It's like the question, obviously a person who believes everything's predetermined, that there's no freedom of choice, there's no point in praying. Prayer is dependent upon possible changes. So there must be possible changes. And this Mishnah is difficult because the Mishnah implies that the fi zechutoi, according to zechut, but still he's got to pray. So therefore, he says that if there's no zechut, then his mazal can't change, because therefore he says. So why has he got to pray? He's got that Hashem will not change things through prayer alone. Prayer must go together with zchut, so that the zchut should cause the predetermined situation to change. He's got to change. He's got to add to it prayer. But also he's also got to choose a profession. That still remains a question. So the person who deals with this in a fantastically deep manner is the Tiferet Israel, whose commentary you have here also, the very bottom. So I'll just also paraphrase here what he says. So he puts it this way. He says, if everything depends upon mazal or predetermined, whether you call it horoscope, it's their predetermined situation, then what will prayer help? Like all the philosophers who believe there's no such thing as freedom of will, so obviously there's no point praying. What are you praying for if everything is predetermined? Whether predetermined by Hashem or it's predetermined by nature. Many modern people want to say. The prayer doesn't help. Prayer only helps if you can think, you can change. But how if here it says everything depends on the zechut. So it's a bit of a question. Anyway, he says the Torah goes into this more deeply and touches upon the question, what is really meant by mazal? First he says,
who is the speaker here?
What Tiferet Israel is one of the later commentators on the Mishnah, who in fact he has fantastic essays on all types of problems. One of the most famous essays is how to understand the geological record in the world. He was a very, very big expert in many of the sciences and discoveries in his time. Already 150 years ago, many of his comments are very valid for us today. So he said like this on this question: Mazal does not mean, according to him, the horoscope. The horoscope means a person's character and everything is decided when he's born. He's born under a certain constellation. He says, even said Chas v'Shalom, that we should believe this. And we see that our early Gaonim, they were very much opposed to this. And above them was the Rambam. And in his letters, in his Shuvot to, when they asked from Marseilles, he said, I received the question, do we accept astrology or not? So he says, no, we don't believe in it. In fact, it says in the Chumash, you should never follow astrologers. It's a Chumash, it's a prohibition, don't follow them. And if we do find statements that imply it, they are all to be understood allegorically. Like nearly all the Agadot of the Gemara, you should not take them literally. And that's what the Rambam says. So what's mazal mean? So he says mazal means something else, to understand it. He says, for this you have to understand the following. Everything known in the world has a cause. Sometimes there are causes that will definitely produce a specific result. The effect of the cause is always the same. And there are many causes where there are effects that are possibilities. here it is very interesting that the modern concept of causality, especially after the quantum theory, is you can no longer speak about absolute laws of nature. It is just plausibility. In other words, there's a majority in favor of a certain cause producing a certain effect. But there's also a random element. In the subatomic world, which has been discovered, there's such a thing as a random element, which means you can't always be sure that all the causes will produce the same result. That means under normal circumstances, everything that goes up will come down. There's law of gravity. But there are exceptions to the law of gravity, as we know today. Then he says we know that the efforts of human beings in the world, they have a purpose, to produce joy, pleasure, and to produce honor. And they can be produced in different ways, by physical power, by the power of money, and the power also of the spirit. And these three different types of efforts, they can come either through straightforward effort of the person, they can come also through saintliness, and they can also come through predetermined causes. Can you follow also inside? Have you got the Tiferes Yisrael?
What?
You've got the Mishnah Tiferes Yisrael? It's okay. And now it's Mishnah Tiferes Yisrael. If you look on the Yochen, the end of Mishnah, last page, Yochen Naboyas. The first column, Aleph. I'm halfway down. Because he's to analyze what's the meaning of mazel. Because the Mishnah says, you want to know, I suppose many of you have got an idea, how are you going to earn money? Yeah? One person will say, I earn money by a person chooses a skill, it's been given. I've been given a skill of translating, I'll make a good translator. Another person got a skill, music, he'll say, through my musical talents. So he says, a person, there's a general law of cause and effect. The general law of cause and effect also applies to human efforts. So therefore a person knows my human effort comes through certain causes. He uses hishtadlut v'hatzdakot. Hishtadlut means physical effort. Hatzdakot means saintly qualities. These are not causes that are absolutes, that will definitely produce an effect. They're only possibilities, potential. A person, let's say, exercises a lot. He knows that's the way he gets strong muscles. Sometimes he'll get strong muscles, sometimes maybe he'll strain some of the muscle too much and he'll fail.
And some people
Not 100%.
work out all the time. And
Not 100%. There's no 100%. It's good exercise will generally produce a good physical body. But you can't say, you don't see 100% laws of cause and effect. There are limits and different natures. And the same applies also, he says, to saintliness. So he says that these are not definite. So all things that come, either physical effort or financial power or mental and emotional power, do not produce definite effects. They produce majority effects. But mazal comes through to flow. Mazal is a reference to those aspects in life that will definitely produce an effect. It's like a huge flood of water, that will certainly, the huge water from let's say from a big dam, you take away the seichel. What do you call the seichel?
The barrier, the wall.
What's it called?
The dam. The dam?
Yeah, take away the dam. Then the water will come down in an enormous rush. But he says there are two types of mazal flowing. One is one which you can see, and one that you can't see. The one you can see is the natural force that seems to always produce the same result. And this depends on in the human being. In the human being's life, a person also has certain natural powers in his body which are dependent upon his father and mother. That's what we call, it's called today the genetical structure of the human being. In other words, his initial nature, which is given. And then, but even for his body, there's a second type of influence on him which has to do with his climate, his environment, where he lives. And also has to do with the time, and also has got to do what he eats and drinks. It's also got to do how he's educated. It also has to do with what type of work he does. All these 6 aspects join together to produce a body that is either weak or strong. They produce money, either rich or less. His wisdom will increase or decrease. But both these things can be for good and also can afterwards be for bad. That's why this is called the hidden mazal, which you can't really... The divine power of wisdom that's decided before a person is born, which is what the sages say, famous Gemara, that before a baby is born, then the malach, that means the divine power, which makes a decision upon this baby, decides what's going to happen to this seminal drop. What will happen? Will he or she become strong or weak, wise or foolish, rich or poor? From here we learn out the principle, Hakol b'dei shamayim, everything in the hand of heaven, except the fear of heaven. So this is what we call the basic determinism of the human being, and this is how does it go on? That Gemara, it goes on and says, what is not decided, whether it's going to be a saint or a sinner. That's everything, because that's called Yirat Shamayim. What you do with these qualities, that means to explain, it's not that this is the only aspect of predeterminism. It's also predetermined how we'll grow up. Education, environment, all these things have an impact. But it's not things over which the person has real control. The control he has with, is he going to use it for good, is he going to use it for bad? The person will be very clever, and he uses his cleverness to produce destruction. So from this, we'll want to explain the Mishnah, but I'll have to leave to the next year. I think that's quite important. Not the next page, if you've got the whole next page goes in, that's a huge book dealing with this subject. And also but the last page of the Mishnahs, you'll find the Atana. Now we'll come to explain the Mishnah in the light of this. You'll see it's quite a fantastic interpretation of what it says here briefly in the Mishnah concerning livelihood, which is a very important question for all of us, especially when you're not yet married. What's got to know, how you're going to manage, how do you look at it, and sometimes on this, a person's got the right outlook on this, it will make a difference to how long it's going to stay in the yeshiva. So it's quite important, I think, for everyone here. And also how he's going to manage when he does get married. And I can tell you from my experience, there's plenty of situations where there was all the money in the world and it didn't work out well. And others where there was no money and it worked out very well, the marriage. To be able to make do. So what says here in the Mishnah, a lot of truth in it, but I'll already ask you a question. You should all look at the rest of the Mishnah in English, the whole Mishnah, and you'll find there seems to be a contradiction between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Nehoroi. They disagree one with the other, if you go through. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir had two names. Meir means he brings light that's in pure Hebrew, and Nahoroi means the one that produces light in Aramaic. And Rabbi Nahoroi was the same person as Rabbi Meir, so he contradicts himself. So I want you to find the answer to that question. Because he said, I'm only teaching my son Torah, nothing else.
But that's like his pen name.
That's what Rabbi Noah said.
It's like his pen name. Many authors do that.
No, he made a ruling, a person should always, olam, a person should always teach his son a profession. In fact, he shouldn't teach him something which might lead him to swindle. You see it. But it's got to be a profession. The key of a kala is not just, as we said before, we shouldn't meet too many women and have lewd thoughts, but it also means it should be one which is 100% honest, not leading to swindle other people. It's very important. It's very important. Everyone's got no profession. And afterwards he says himself, my son, I'm only teaching him Torah.
So you're saying as the same man wrote in two different names on two different sides of the coin?
Yeah.
Where does
talk more, it's already, I don't want to miss your lunch.
Where does emunah comes into play?
Huh?
Emunah. Emunah bitachon. It also plays a big part.
Of course.
Tefillah, emunah bitachon.
That's it, Palel, he said. Tefillah includes emunah, of course.